Aloha, and welcome to the monthly public presentation of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. Since 1990, the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii has been following our mission of promoting human health, animal rights, and protection of the environment by means of vegetarian education, as we've grown to become one of the largest all-volunteer, nonprofit vegetarian societies in the nation. It's now time to introduce our special guest. We're thrilled to have with us tonight, Lani Muelrath. Yay. Lani Muelrath, MA, is an award-winning teacher, author, TV host, and top plant-based vegan lifestyle coach, a certified specialist in behavior change, plant-based nutrition, and mindfulness meditation instruction. Lani has been featured on CBS TV, ABC TV, Prevention, USA Today, Huffington Post, and the Saturday Evening Post. A presenter for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Complete Health Improvement Program, and guest lecturer at San Francisco State University. Lani is associate faculty at, how do we pronounce it, Butte? Okay, Lani is associate faculty at Butte College, where her book has been adopted as required text. She is the author of The Doctor and Dietitian Recommended, The Plant-Based Journey, a step-by-step guide to transition to a healthy lifestyle and achieving your ideal weight. Recognized by VegNews as top media pick for 2015, and Fit Quickies 5-minute targeted body shaping workouts. Her presentation tonight is entitled Rookie or Rock Star, the 5 Steps to Plant-Based Nutrition. Please join me in welcoming Lani Muelrath.
I'm gonna have to get hold of it, or you're gonna. Oh my. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for that spectacular introduction, and I am so excited to be here tonight, I can't tell you. And I've never been so warmly welcomed by a group anywhere. I've been traveling all over the world with the plant-based journey, and I gotta tell you, from the minute Lorraine contacted me, and Carol's been involved, and Georgie put me up in her apartment, and everyone's sending me all this information, so please give them applause. They've just been such wonderful contact for me. Now talk about the aloha spirit, and I didn't know Down to Earth was going to be providing the ingredients for our recipes tonight. I've been there 3 or 4 times already. That's where I'm getting all my food, and I've been running on the beach and just having a spectacular time, so thank you for the warm welcome. I'm just really excited to be here for that. The other thing I want to do before we get started is to congratulate you. You know that you are world famous, the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. I kid you not. We just see your organization, those of us floating around over there in the mainland, as really being leaders. You're on the forefront. We know you have a strong organization, and we've got this spectacular website with the videos, so congratulations on all of the work that you are doing. And thank you for leading the way, and thank you for inviting me here. And you've had this series of presenters for years now, haven't you? You've had the doctors and the dietitians and the environmentalists and the humanitarians, and I am here in the capacity for you tonight of behavior change specialist. Because sometimes we hear a great idea, and then we're over here and we might need a little bit of bridge, or maybe somebody you know could use a little bit of a bridge, a connection between the two. So that's what the 5 steps of the plant-based journey that are universal, by the way, for successful, sustainable change to plant-based living. 5 steps. Are you interested in hearing what those are? Okay, I will tell you about that, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I came up with them. But first, what I'd like all of us to do right now is to connect with the thing that has brought us all together here tonight. And that is that somewhere, somebody you talked to, something you read, or something you heard gave you this idea to change your life in its most fundamental way. And that is with what you put on your plate and what you eat, right? We all have that in common. So what I'd like you to do right now is think back to that moment in time when that idea was awakened in you. Was it someone you talked to? Was it a series of events? Was it something you heard? Can you find it? Maybe a series of events? Okay, what I'd like right now is, don't raise your hand or anything like that. I want one person to just jump up and come on up here, and in about 10 seconds, just tell us what your moment of awakening to this change in your life was. Just anybody, just jump up. Okay, Carol's going. Oh, we didn't plan this. Thank you, Carol. See, she's helping out again.
Well, I knew since I was very small that I wanted to be vegetarian, and I became so when I was 17, but I did not become vegan until 2009. My favorite aunt called, we were on the phone, and she said, oh, guess what, Jim and I are vegan. And it shocked me because I was the only vegetarian in the family. And we talked about it. She had read the book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Esselstyn. And so I got that book. I wanted to start right away, but I had just gone shopping and bought all these 80s things on sale at Down to Earth. And so I thought, well, I'm going to use those first, but it was taking so long. I finally called, in about a week, I called up a friend who was vegetarian, and I said, bring your cooler, I'm going to load you up. And that's when I started. So it took me about a week. And it was, it changed my life.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Wait, don't go anywhere yet. I'd like you to have this to thank you for helping with my lesson tonight, so be sure that I sign that for you. My pleasure, yeah. So it sounds like she had kind of a progression, didn't she? Didn't I hear her talk about vegetarian a long time ago and then kind of like that? So, but we all have that progression, and that's really important. As a matter of fact, that is a universal step on the journey. Would you not agree? Unless you think of something or it occurs to you, you're not even going to start on it. So the first step of the plant-based journey is the awakening. Someone you talked to, something you read, maybe a sequence of events, maybe it was a health crisis. Any one of those things could have gotten you started. But it's very important, and it really gives legs to the rest of your journey. It's important to stay connected with it. Now, as we know, the research tells us there are 3 primary reasons that people start down the plant-based journey or start changing their lives to eating vegetarian or eating plant-based and vegan. And I'm betting many of you have all 3 of them. One of those reasons is, let's start with health. And Carol mentioned that a little bit too. For me, I started my journey about, gosh, I think it's been 44 years ago now. So I like to say before birth is when I got it started on this kind of thing. But I had all 3 of these reasons, one of which is health. So we're going to start with that. I am one of those people who has a genetic predisposition. Is that a word? Genetically predisposed to easily gain and have a hard time losing weight. So if you look back at my family tree, you can see there's a lot of people challenged in that regard. So I first went vegetarian for a variety of reasons, but one of them thinking, oh, I'll just drop the weight and it'll be really easy to maintain. But as we know, as a vegetarian, I had dropped all animal products except for dairy products. And even back in the 70s, when we knew that whole foods were good for you, we didn't know quite as much as we do know now. But one thing that really, oh, that's me on the left, by the way. It doesn't help that everyone else in the picture is skinny. But this just tells you a little bit. There's me next to my skinny sister, and that's me. So it tells you a little bit about how we come into this world. There are some changes, and we all have our own naturally healthy weight. The nice thing is to be able to find it in a way that you can be full without being fat. And isn't that sweet that our chosen lifestyle does that for us? So as I moved through time, I was a vegetarian for probably about 30 years before I started really moving toward veganism. And this picture on the left was in Switzerland in 1998, I think. And about that time, I went through several shifts that enabled me to move toward losing 50 pounds. I'd already started to lose that 50 pounds in that picture on the left that I've now sustained for ongoing to 20 years. So it's been a really pleasure for me to be able to share this lifestyle with others and how this way of eating contributes to healthy weight so easily for you. The other reason is, of course, the animals. You may recognize our friend Jean Bauer. This is the farm sanctuary in Northern California. I don't want to miss these people back here. Is near me. It's probably about an hour and 15 minutes away. So I've had a lot of opportunity to go there and with their celebrations and meet with Jean quite a bit. And I've got to say that the animals really pulled on my heart first for this change. I was teaching yoga. I was studying yoga in high school, and as soon as I got to college, I persisted in my studies, and then I started teaching yoga. And anyone here know anything about yoga or studied it or been to a class? There is the concept of ahimsa, which is nonviolence and caring and compassion for other beings. So that really caught my attention and was a big driver for me becoming vegetarian. And another reason, of course, that starts to come in when you talk about the animals is the environment. So what do the elephants have to do with the environment? Like I said, the animals are a big draw for me. My husband and I have worked as volunteer field biologists all over the world. And most recently, we become involved with the elephants in Africa. We were there earlier this year, and we're going back in January because the animals are paying the price for everything else that we're doing with the environment and also with what we choose to put on our plates. And you know, this is the leading issue of our times, and it connects the dots with everything else, with our health and with the care of the animals. And you may recognize James Cameron and Susie Amos Cameron, the film director. They have been very supportive of the plant-based journey and my project, but even more, isn't it great when we have someone who's very high profile, who steps forward? Doesn't that always kind of get you excited? Because we know that it's going to be put in front of a lot of more ears and hearts and eyes and faces. So I am appreciative to them for that. But as we know that the environmental degradation, the biggest cause these days is animal agriculture. I understand that something like 50% of the land, water, in the mainland goes to animal agriculture. Now people go, come on, cows aren't that thirsty. But we know it's more complex than that. It's also the growing of all the feed to feed the cows that, you know, diminishes our ability to access those calories for food. It's for cleaning, it's for transportation, and all of it. So these three reasons, the health, as you know, the leading causes of death are reversible diseases, lifestyle diseases. That means you can largely eat your way out of them. We have the care of the animals, and we also have the environment. So let me ask you, if we can eat in such a way that is spectacularly delicious and beautiful, is good for our health, is good for the other animals that share our earth, and for protecting our precious natural resources, why wouldn't we choose that? So these are the three primary reasons, and depending on the demographic, that one region or another jumps to the surface. Once you have become awakened to making this change, the next step of the journey is what I call Scout. Now, before we go there, do you want to hear a little bit about how I came up with these 5 steps? I've been doing a lot of media and interviews as a result of the book coming out, and there's one question that keeps coming up over and over again, and that question is, how did you come up with those 5 steps? Because one, they are so accessible and inclusive. how is it that you came up with those? So I've got a three-part answer to that before we go into the next steps. The first part is through my own personal experience. Now remember, these 5 steps are based on what has been discovered is sustainable. That means something that lasts. And I know you're smart people, you want something that's going to last over time. And I conducted over 1,200 surveys in preparation of the Plant-Based Journey book. And I asked my clients and my readers and people who had been successful at this transition for a long time, what do you wish you had known when you got started? What do you wish you could tell somebody else before they get started? What do you think would make it more successful? Those really informed the manuscript, and you'll see their stories all throughout the book, which is really nice when you get a model from someone else. Another thing was my own personal experience, as I said, because I've told you a little bit about my journey, and I'll be telling you more as we go through. And the other thing is I am also, in addition to the other things that Lorraine told you about me, I am a teacher. I taught 6th grade for 20 years. So as a teacher, I'm experienced and trained and skilled in how to take what could be a complex problem or challenge and put it into doable steps so that the student, which is all of us, can proceed successfully one step after another. So those things combined is what has informed this project together. The surveys, my own experience, and also my skills as a teacher. So once you've got your awakening and you move to the scout stage, this is the reconnaissance mission. What's on a plant-based plate? How do you get your kitchen ready? How are you going to put things like meals together? What are you going to do to actually make that happen? And believe it or not, how do you read labels? A lot of people miss that step. They don't take the care to really get themselves prepared, or maybe they'll go to like an immersion weekend. Have you ever been to one of those, like a McDougal weekend or a you know, they have these like 10-day things or 4 or 5 days things, and people get great food and they get all excited and they get all the information, and then they come home and wait, those meals were all prepared for me. How am I going to go about doing this? So it's really an important step to take, and it doesn't have to be fancy or complex. And I have a few tips about exactly how to do that, and we'll go through that as we go forward. But it's really an important step. So as Scout, you have to be prepared before you're going to go on. You have to know what you should move off of your plate and what you should move onto your plate. And by the way, my label reading process, who wants to go to the store and have a math project? You know, I pretty much say if it has more than 5 ingredients, you're probably maybe not in good company, and you need to be able to read what's on the label, and it should be in Whole Foods as well. And also in the Scout section, this is when you find out about the beauties of whole plant foods for easy weight management. So since that was dear to my heart, I addressed the Good News Guide to Hunger Satisfaction. And I talk about the rules of satiety. Are you familiar with those? Why we're full? Why do we get full? Why do we get hungry? There's actually several reasons, many that we probably don't know about why we actually reach hunger satisfaction. And the fact that whole plant foods have so much fiber in them is what makes it possible for us to reach satiety and also to maintain our naturally healthy weight. It's only when we rip foods apart by over-processing or refining, taking key parts out of them and tossing them and just eating the calorific parts that are left, that we don't reach hunger satisfaction before we've eaten too many calories. Let's give an example here. One of the rules for fullness, or rules of satiety, is actually stretch. You know, that stretch feeling when you start eating? You start to, you know that feeling when you start to fill up? Well, as your gut fills, you start to get that stretch in your stomach, and it fires off the stretch receptors. You probably know about this in your brain that says, hey, I'm starting to get full, I'm getting enough to eat. And what does that tell you then about the qualities of what you are eating for when those stretch receptors are going to be fired off before you've had too many calories for your energy needs? So let's take an example here. Let's take like a pound of cheese. Can you picture that? You know, those cheese comes in a pound block. And like a pound of apples, all right? Now, based on the stretch factor alone, we know the apples have a load of fiber. And the cheese, how much? None. Animal products, 0 fiber. So just based on that alone, if you were just eating cheese or just eating apples, which one of those, by the time you reach your stretch receptor, is going to be more likely to contribute to you having more calories than you would require for your naturally healthy weight? See where I'm going with that? Yeah, the cheese is going to, you know, by the time the apples are going to get that stretch factor going a lot earlier than the cheese, which has no fiber. Now, I'm not recommending a diet of just apples, so don't come and ask me about the apple diet afterwards. That's not my recommendation because it doesn't have the nutrition and the calories that you need. And that's why the cardboard and celery diet doesn't work. You know, you can get a lot of fiber and a lot of stretch, but you're not going to be hunger satisfied. So these are all part of the Scout mission. Understanding more about what you're doing and how to go about doing it. The next step is rookie stage. So this is the fun part because now you get to start eating. This is when you take your turn at bat and start preparing things. Do you remember your first forays into plant-based nutrition? Maybe some of you came from a background where it was easy and natural and you ate that way anyway, but a lot of people are not so lucky. I suggest to people that they start by what I call plantifying your plate. That means just find the foods that you already love that are plant-based. We've got tons of them. Bean enchiladas, spaghetti with marinara sauce, tacos, salads, peanut butter sandwiches, apples and bananas, you know, papayas. I've been going through papayas now that I'm here like crazy. Thank you, down to earth. But these foods are all plant-based. It's not something exotic. It's not necessarily fancy recipes unless that's what you like to do. Plantifying your plate is a big way to get started. And what I'd like to do now, would you like to see a short little video clip? I got 5 minutes. I have been in the CBS in Sacramento. They have a show called Good Morning Sacramento, and they got a hold of the copy of the book and they just loved it, which is good for us plant-based folks because they've had me back several times to do short segments. And in one of those segments I did how to plantify your plate, and I want to show it to you because there's a couple reasons, but one is as skilled as you may be at already moving into this way of eating or experienced in it for a long time, there may be people that you are helping or that come to you for help, and it might give you some ideas for that.
So we'll talk with the author of a new book that could teach you strategies for adding greens to your meals. That's coming up.
Look at the kale head.
Some snacks. This is probably not going to work out. Hi, Lani. Welcome back. Okay, now the last time you were here, you played around with us. We did some quickie exercises.
Yes, we did. We
Okay.
worked on Fit Quickies, and everyone was such good spirits. I'm so happy to be back here because you guys are so much fun.
Well, welcome back, because you always have good stuff. So aside from us eating cereal and pancakes today, you are coming to tell us about this cool book, Plant-Based
Thank you.
Journey. You're going to plantify our plates.
Yes, quick tips for how to plantify your plates because, you know, no matter where you are on the food continuum, everyone knows we need to get more vegetables and whole foods in our diets. So I like to start people there. Whether you're real experienced with doing that, there's some quick, easy way, or brand new, there's easy ways to get more plants on your plate, all right? So I have a few examples here. First, what I wanted to tell you is I'm a very lazy cook. So I like to get in and make it quick so I can get to the good part, which is eating. And it has to taste really good.
Okay.
So for my first example, I have taken simple brown rice or any kind of rice that you like.
Okay.
How can you get it so you get more greens? We all know we're supposed to have more whole plant greens in our diet. Well, here's what I do. I cook a pot of rice and then I'll chop up some Napa cabbage
I see what you did there.
open a can of mushrooms and slice up a little kale and then just toss it in
Look at that.
while
Very
the
easy.
rice is still hot, so
Okay.
it wilts the greens quickly.
Got it.
So sometimes you don't even know you're eating a green, and you can kind of work your way up from there to getting more greens in your diet.
Okay.
And you can use anything. You can use this beautiful Napa cabbage, or you can use kale.
We
but
love
if
kale.
you find this daunting, guess what? We have in a bag in
Love
little
it.
pieces, so you don't have to feel like you chop. You can use regular, you can use spinach,
Right.
all kinds of things. Then we have you can do the same thing with pasta.
Yes.
Cook up pasta, and notice I cleverly did part white pasta, part whole wheat, because if you're
Oh, I
trying
see what
to
you
move
did
to
there,
whole
you
grains,
sneaky lady, you.
No, if people are trying to move to whole grains, but
Right.
they go, I don't like whole grains, well, do half and half for a while. Change your taste slowly. And I folded in spinach and olives to this.
Okay, now this is going to be my favorite one, the bulgur wheat. I know a lot of people have heard of bulgur wheat.
Yes.
Some people have not, but they don't necessarily know what's the purpose of bulgur
In
wheat.
in this bowl of chili, this is actually called Game Changer Chili, and this recipe is in the Plant-Based Journey.
Right.
Most of my ideas in the book are templates, which are just ideas like this, throw
Right.
things together. In this, everyone loves chili, right? Isn't that a universal?
Absolutely.
And I have done the same thing. I've cooked the chili and then folded in some spinach.
Okay.
And then, if you're trying to move out the animal products
Yes.
and move out the meat, I have replaced what might be ground beef in here with some bulgur wheat.
And
So-
it looks like short grain brown
yeah,
rice.
it does. It does.
When
But
you
it
cook
has a really good nutty taste. So I just cooked that into it. And this took 3 minutes to cook in the pressure cooker. And then I folded in kidney beans. So
Boom.
yeah, here's some bulgur wheat
That's what it looks like in
dried
the
before
store.
it's put in.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, now tell me about these muffins, because we like
Ah.
little things that are quick, grab it, go.
Yeah, all right. Here, this is plantified. Who doesn't love cornbread? The
Right.
perfect match for the chili. What I have done is I've plantified cornbread by just chopping up peppers, green, yellow, orange, red. I put in whole corn. Here's
Here,
the
here,
peppers.
let me move these out of the way.
Did Ken put that in? Ken is always
Rudolph.
sabotaging
Well,
the
you
set.
needed a little extra kick.
Let's see if some ended up in the muffins. See how you have all this beautiful
it's
color
beautiful
in here?
color, yeah.
And it just makes festive and fun, and you have plantified your plate. We all know the benefits of having more plant foods in our diet, so lots of ideas, lots of ways to go.
And proof is in the pudding, because take a look at her picture. This is Lani's picture, a little before and after. Now, do you mind if I let her friends know your age range?
Not at all. You can do my exact.
Your exact?
age.
63?
63.
No,
that's
you're
correct.
making that up. Stop
Right?
lying.
Right?
Stop it.
And look
Right
at
now,
her.
because you're lying.
Look at those legs, darling.
Well,
Yes.
let me tell you, this is a difference, and I was a vegetarian in this earlier shot.
Yeah.
But when you think of incorporating more of the whole foods
Yeah,
and
that's the
moving away
trick.
even processed things, then you have a whole different way of satisfying your hunger, so you can be full without being fat. And who doesn't want that, right?
We love that. We love that. Listen, her book has been #1 since July for newbie books coming out, especially in the vegetarian category, and the people behind her
Yes, I'm so
that are writing
excited.
her forward and stuff, very influential people, and they know what they're talking about. So if they like it, we should like it too.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Lani, for coming in. Appreciate
That's
it.
Much
awesome.
fun. Oh,
Ken?
I forgot one other thing.
Oh, what's that?
What did I do this
Yeah,
time?
I brought dessert for everyone here, of course.
Yay.
Wait, I've got
Is that
some
chocolate?
chocolate cherry truffles for cast crew and everyone here.
That's
because-
awesome.
Yes.
You can
I've
come
got,
back.
Do
I've
they
got
have
all
kale?
kinds
Do they
of
have kale in them?
Kale cinder?
Is there kale in them?
No, I folded in cherries and chocolate and walnuts, but we got a whole food dessert here, and I've got a whole thing for the holidays with yummies, pumpkin nut muffins,
We'll have
and
you back.
Yeah, you can come back.
Yes. All right.
my pleasure. Thank you.
And I wanted to show you that for a couple reasons. Did you notice the Fruit Loops? Earlier in that show, it's like those morning shows, they go on, on and on. But earlier in the show, they had done a segment on how to make pancakes with your kid's favorite breakfast cereal. So they had the batter, and they had like Sugar Smacks and Cap'n Crunch and Fruit Loops that, they're making them for everybody. And so that was actually my idea, to let's leave some of those Fruit Loops on the table. And you saw how it kind of worked in. And I want to make a point with that, and one reason I like to show this is because it's really important for us to keep our sense of humor as we're moving forward and working with people. If I had come in there as the healthy vegan lady and pointed my finger at their pancakes, I would not have the impact. They probably would have had me back 5 more times to, do segments. It's because we've established a connection, and that's how you help other people make change. By being present with them, by being sincere, by being able to laugh at yourself a little bit. So that was really important. And all the foods that you saw there were recipes that I have in the book to those chocolate cherry truffles. There's another tip. Don't you find that people are more interested in what you eat when you bring them really good food? Always bring them something good to eat. I think you win hearts through stomachs and through modeling behaviors more than any other way. The other thing I wanted to do before we move on from rookie stage is the templates that I've got, and some of you have already commented about those to me tonight, having looked through the book. I have a series of templates. I do have some recipes, but I also have what I call templates in there. Template, what does that mean? It's like this, this, and this, and you can mix them and match them in different ways. When I was having the conversation with my publisher, which by the way is the same publisher as the China study, and so I'm just really honored to be part of that team. He said, those templates look really good. I think people are really going to like those. And I thought, okay, that's just the way I cook. Because like you heard me say it, I'm a really lazy cook. I'm not much for fancy recipes. So what I did is I just take how I cook at home. If I'm going to make a stir fry, I find 2 or 3 of my favorite vegetables that I have handy. I get some vegetable broth or some mirin or some sweet wine and stir fry it with that. Then I'll put it with bean or tofu or some other meatier protein, and then a grain or starchy vegetable. That's kind of like a template meal. And that's another thing. Meal planning is also kind of like a template, isn't it? How many of you have heard this? And I've heard some of the plant-based doctors say this. First is you just kind of forget about everything that you know about nutrition to do this. Just kind of throw it out the window. Have you heard that? Well, I put my foot down at that as a teacher, because as a teacher, I know the way we learn things is by connecting with something we already know. So some of us do fine with that, jump off the cliff, toss it out the window. But for some people, that's pretty scary. So I like to connect with people, what people know, and along with the template recipes is an idea I have that I call the Easy Meal Planner. Instead of fancy recipes, I say, how did your mom and parents plan your meals when you grew up? For me, my mom always had, here's the main dish, which is usually protein and starch, like tuna casserole, chicken and rice, and then she had 1 or 2 vegetables, and then fruit. So that was kind of the component. She made sure all our lunches and dinners were like that. Does that sound familiar to some of you? So what I suggest is, rather than feel like you have to throw that all out the window, just overlay that plant-based foods onto that. So now instead of the chicken and rice or the tuna casserole, you have a bean enchilada or some kind of tacos or a tofu sauce over pasta, something like that, and then have a couple of vegetables and then your fruit, whether it's at the meal or the rest of the day. But I can't tell you how excited people are to hear that. They go, oh, well, that's accessible. That's not daunting. I can relate to that because that kind of looks like how I eat. So it's not like some foreign territory. The other thing before we leave the rookie stage, this is where you really make the leap, the transition to not just knowing about it, but actually living it. So I want to ask you, what do you think my survey responders said to this question? What do you think is the best way for people to make this change? Overnight or step by step over time? So what do you think was their response? How many of you think they said overnight? Oh, no takers. How many said over time? Okay. Now, does that match your own opinion? Okay. Actually, the survey, remember this was 1,200 people successfully transitioned, which means from 3 to 5 years continuing to eat plant-based nutrition. It was about a 50-50 split. And I go through this in the manuscript of the Plant-Based Journey too. I have a little chart in there. Half the people said overnight, half the people said over time, but I got a qualifier here. Of those people that said overnight, I read between the lines. I never just had them check a box. I always say, oh, tell me more about this, tell me more about that. at least half of those people had said something like this: well, I just did XYZ overnight, but for a while it was hard for me to, and so then I did, and then I couldn't do XYZ for a while, so I did. So in their minds, it was overnight, but it was actually overnight over time because they kept doing one after another. And truthfully, that's how many of us are. Some people can just jump off a cliff and make a big change, but most of us need to not only be compassionate for the animals and the environment, but for ourselves, and to work in doable increments so that we have success and lasting change. That's the first group that's everyone said over time. That everyone said, that the survey had said. But interestingly, I bet everyone's also responding with their own opinion. See, I told you guys we're the wise people on the planet. Okay, after you have gone through the rookie stage, all right, now first you got awakened, then you got yourself ready, then you started trying things on, cooking, and by the way, people don't understand, you know, you are entitled to have several flop recipes, just as if you were doing any other kind of recipe. People have such a tall order for themselves. Oh, I made this meal and it wasn't very good. Well, so what? Make another one or make a different one. No, the food needs to be food that you like. And then from there, we go into the rock star. Now, here's what happens here. Okay, you've gotten pretty good in your sheltered environment at home. You know how to shop, you know how to procure the food, you know how to prepare it. You've established a few basics that you really like. But now, what about if you take it to a bigger stage? What about the workplace? What about travel? What about social events? What about family? I have a whole a topic that I like to address, which is family, friends, and food pushers. And food pushers can take on several qualities. They can be either people or they can be foods themselves. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes people push themselves on you, sometimes food wants to push itself on you. So this is another place where I drew from personal experience and also from my survey responders. How have you been handling these kinds of situations? And it comes down to learning strategies that are a match for what I mentioned just a few moments ago. Being present with people, listening to them, not being so quick and ready with our own agenda, which we certainly do have. We're very passionate about our food, aren't we? We know. and understanding that we weren't always in this place and where we came from is very helpful, because we have to realize how many of us would want to have someone approach us and say, by the way, everything that you've been doing is wrong. You know, it's just wrong. None of us would be drawn to that. We would immediately put up resistance, and that's an area that I'm really interested in. And by the way, I did just sign for my next book, and I've been working on that a little while I'm here, and it's going to approach more of that, more about the mindfulness and with ourselves and also with others. But it's very important. And I found that the best way to reach others is by, well, I already said give them good food, but also being present with them, and so that they feel that we're caring about them and not just making them think like we do. Big difference. Finally, after Rockstar is champion. Now, does that sound like you're supposed, it's the Olympics. Does that supposed to sound like you're supposed to be the best at all? Actually, if you think about what does a champion do? Did you see Phelps and another medal? More than medal? You know, when I was heard on BBC, I was driving to the Sacramento airport. I left at 3:30 in the morning to come see you fine folks. And I had BBC on the radio. It was a 2-hour drive. And the commentator said, okay, Michael Phelps, he'd won 19 medals at the time. And they said if Michael Phelps were a country, he would be 47th overall in winning medals by country, because you know how we say over time, it's pretty good. You can win enough medals to rank as an actual country. But the champion is someone who simply practices. Is anyone here do martial arts or know anything about them? Okay, used to, or you've heard of them. Well, we all know that the dojo is where the martial arts are studied, and we know that the master is the sensei, someone who's very skilled. But when they go down to the dojo, do they say, I'm going down to perform? I'm going down to practice. And that's important for us to remember. All it is putting in place the things that you learn along the way so that you can get better and better at them. And sometimes you have, it's like at the rookie stage, sometimes you hit a home run, but does a rookie always hit a home run? No, sometimes they strike out, sometimes they hit foul balls, so that's just the human condition. What I'd like to do now is go from these 5 steps. We followed this arc here. Does it kind of make sense to you? And maybe it even seems like really logical, but that's the beauty of them. They connect organically with us. Well, of course I should do that, and then that would be a natural outgrowth. But I've also addressed what I call the key supporting players, which are physical activity and mastery of mindset, or getting some degree of mastery over your habits or progression of thinking and reactivity. Because think about it, if we could get a grip on that, wouldn't everything else be, isn't that really where it is? If you can have insights into how to follow through on what it is in your best interest, more skillful living. And I consider these 3 essential for healthy lifestyle change: the food, the fitness, and the frame of mind. I don't think they can be teased apart. I think that they are essential to go together. So before we start talking about the 2 key supporting players, I want to, you didn't think you were going to get a fitness person here without moving, did you? All you need to do is stand up on your feet, please, and if you can't stand, then you can stay seated. My first book was called Fit Quickies. You heard Lorraine refer to it, and this is a book that's now a required text in kinesiology at my college. I'm very excited. But I have a series of short exercises. One I'm going to teach to you right now, and it's an instant invigorator, and I will do it together and I'll explain to you the value of it. First thing is just put your heels together and turn your toes out. You don't even need to see me for this, so I'm fine that I'm not on the stage. From here, what I'd like you to do is pull your body up. Pull your rib cage up from your hips so that you kind of grow by 1 inch. Let your shoulders drop back and down and reach the top of your head to the ceiling. Good. Now, take a nice deep breath in, and as you exhale, can you pull your abdominal muscles in just a little bit, kind of your, jeans zipper muscle. Pull that in slightly. And then I'd like you to slightly grip your backyard, not the one at home, the one you have with you. So just give it a little bit of a squeeze so that you're all activated down through here, all right? Everyone looks great. Did you guys practice this before I came? Wonderful posture. Now back to the legs. With your feet together as they are, I want you to keep everything in place, your belly, your shoulders, your seat is tight, and extend your leg muscles until they're straight, completely locked straight. So to do that, you have to activate all kinds of muscles in your legs. This is called legs into play, because it brings all the muscles of the legs into play quite quickly. All right, so legs are straight, belly is in, seat is tight, top of head to ceiling, shoulders are back. Now with your legs, keep them completely straight. I want you to start tapping your heels. Just tap the heels. And if you need to hang on to your neighbor, that's okay. Just keep tapping tiny little lifts. Now while you're doing this, everything has to stay in place. Belly, back, seat, legs straight. Don't let them bend. Don't let them soften. Keep tapping, okay? Are you starting to feel a little bit of warmth and something going on in the calves? Okay, pause for a second. Now slowly up to the toes, down to the heels. Up to the toes, down to the heels. Don't let the legs bend. Don't let the seat relax. I'm not going to come and check, but I may have you check the person in front of you. Let's do 4 more. Up and down, 2 and 1. Perfect. Now just put your feet into parallel, and if you need to turn to the side, you could do that, but I want you to stretch by putting your right foot behind you so you can turn sideways. We're going to stretch the muscles in the calves right after. So leaning forward a little bit, then pull the heel of the right foot off the floor and push it back down. Can you feel that stretch in the calf? Okay, and then switch to the other side. So the left foot is back, toes straight ahead. Of course, your posture is still perfectly beautiful. Pull the heel off the floor, push it back down to the floor, and then pull in and float back down to your seat. Thank you very much. Beautifully done. Now, doesn't that feel good? Okay, have you ever had a time when you did physical activity or exercise where afterwards you didn't feel better? No, we all feel better after we move. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing about physical activity, and since my background prior to becoming involved in teaching about plant-based nutrition is kinesiology, I know that most people, when they think of exercise, think in terms of that it's going to give you a stronger heart, give you stronger muscles, give you stronger bones, help you burn a few calories, maybe give you a better figure. And actually, exercise does all those things beautifully. But it buries the lead at the real benefit of physical activity. And that's what it does for your brain. The minute you start putting one foot in front of the other, or as you were doing just now, there is a release of biochemicals in your body. You've heard of them, serotonin, dopamine. This biochemistry mixes with a protein in your brain known as BDNF. I'll explain that. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. In other words, you're building new brain cells when you start moving your body. New neurons, that's what I mean new neurons and the connectors. So that you actually are enabling yourself to grow and change in your brain. If you are not exercising, it's more challenging for that to take place. So if you are interested in a lifestyle change, do you think that it might be important to be moving your body? We know that even having people move while they're learning things helps to accelerate the process and build those synapses. And I like to look at it this way: if your body is stuck in cement, your brain is going to be stuck in cement. So when people ask me, well, should I focus on the diet or exercise first? Have you ever heard people ask that? I don't know if I should do the diet. I say, why leave one out? If you can actually start moving your body in simple fashion, really, just going on walks, doing physical activity that you love, and that would help you with everything else, why not do that? So wedding them together is really important. And I really dive into this in a great depth. I have over 250 references in the plant-based journey because I'm an academic and I want things to be reinforced by science and the research. So if that's important to you, you'll be satisfied to see that as well. You might want to just look through and see if there's some of those things that interest you after. And the other thing about physical activity is that in addition to this growth that you have in the brain, you also have a defogging of the brain. Do you know how it is like when you sit for an hour and a half and it's like, you know? We know there's this thing called inactive physiology, otherwise known as sedentarism. I bet you guys have heard all about this, yes? We know that if you sit or lie, I should say, any reclining, not activity-based or not standing, for these 2, 3, 4 hour stretches that we have, that there are specific biomarkers of disease that accelerate. Even if you're getting your workout in at the end of the day. So if you're sitting for a computer for 3 to 4 hours in the morning and 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon, even if you do your hour and a half workout at the end of the day, you are still as susceptible to the acceleration of disease biomarkers as someone who doesn't exercise at all. I know it's not fair. You're probably healthier overall, but this inactivity, it's been shown we have elevation of triglycerides, cholesterol, glucose sensitivity drops. In other words, that you're not as sensitive to intakes of sugar, so your blood sugar can rise too high, metabolic syndrome, all these things just from sitting for long periods of time. And actually, I do have something in the plant-based journey. You're welcome to look at it. It's in the activity section about, it's called the metabolic profile, so you can kind of look through your day and see what really is going on. You might be surprised. If you write down, 7 to 7:30, sat at table eating breakfast, 7:30 to 8, drove in car, 8 to 8:15, walked to 8:15 to 11:15, sitting at, it's astonishing how it really adds up. But it can give you information about some of these problems that we're having with physicality. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to show you Fit Quickie number 10 that you just did. It's an instant invigorator, because your calves that you were working in alignment are known as your heart's peripheral pump. Did you know about that? Every time you squeeze the calf muscle, it helps to pump the blood out of the lower extremities to be reoxygenated through the heart. And it also moves the lymph. You know about the lymph system, yes? Our detox agent. So this is why if you're sitting for hours at a time, you start to lose the oxygen in the brain, and you also don't get the detox going on. So this, I will do this probably if I'm working at writing. I have a standing desk, by the way. Anybody know about those? And I didn't get one of those fancy $1,000 ones. I just went out to the furniture graveyard in the garage. Do you have one of those too? And I stacked things up and got them the right level, ergonomically, raised, so that I could be standing. So when I'm doing teleconferences or when I'm doing video things, we just did videos for the Plant Pure Nation Summit. Have you heard about that coming up? I can be standing, it's more energizing, and I don't have all that time sitting. And then I have a higher chair that I'll sit for. I'd rather be stuck standing and then sit for a while. So it's good. I also suggest people set a timer, and every 45 minutes to an hour, get up and do something for 5 minutes. If you're at home, you can go empty the dishwasher, go get the mail, do some kind of chore. If you're at work, you can walk to the far end of the building, do something that gets you moving. It doesn't have to be a big fancy workout, but just sitting less, very important. And the other key supporting player is the mindset mastery. That again this is like the linchpin for me. Obviously, I knew a lot about exercise. It was my specialty for years. I'm teaching at the college in kinesiology, and I knew a lot about nutrition. I'd been studying as a vegetarian since in high school. But this missing link of finding some way of getting mastery or an inroad into changing of behaviors from the inside, and not just from finding new habits and getting motivated and building up willpower, but finding out what it is our patterns of reactivity that cause us to do things that aren't in our best interest for our health. What is that? How can we become more skillful at living? How can we make an intervention into those points of pain? And we all have them. We know where they are. Things that drive us to do things that are outside our desired behaviors. And there's also obstacles to exercise. That's another kind of change. So there are four steps that I like to take people through on that, and they're very similar to the 5 steps of the plant-based journey. First, an awareness, setting some kind of specific intention, making micro changes. That means things you can check off on a list. When it comes to activity, some people, they're starting from nothing. And they think, I have to do a big workout. It has to be a big fancy exercise. They have this idea in their head. And let me share with you an example. This is in the plant-based journey. So it's an example of making micro changes, also inner changes, and the step-by-step and physical activity. Sandra came to me, she weighed 300 pounds. She knew she had to change her diet, and she knew she needed to start moving her body. But it looked too daunting. She says, it hurts to move. So what am I going to do? I asked her this question, can you stand? She said, yeah. Well, today, how about you stand for 5 minutes? Something she really hadn't been doing. She'd get up and down to do things necessarily, but she was very sedentary. Now, that might sound like, oh, come on, stand for 5 minutes, big deal. But guess what? By the next week, she was standing 10 minutes every day. By the end of the month, she was walking 30 minutes a day, and then within a few months' time, she lost 100 pounds. But it started because she did not ridicule me for saying, can you stand for 5 minutes today? Because that was something within reach, something that she could do, and it built her confidence and success. So when I talk about steps of change and making micro changes that are within reach, sometimes they need to be little. And that can help us as we're helping other people along on this journey too. I really am hoping everyone will come away tonight, is my intention, with either something for up-leveling your own food game and or for helping other people on theirs, because I know a lot of you are in that position. We need more workouts. People are getting cold in here. But what I'd like to do is, you know what, if we have time and I might sing my plant-based fight song for you. You're lucky or unlucky, you know, we'll see. But I do have a few pictures here, and then I want to do some Q&A too. Anything you'd like to know about that I can answer for you. These are some recipes from the plant-based journey. Remember I told you connect with something you know? Do you remember pot roast? My mom made this wonderful pot roast. So I have this recipe for portobello pot roast, and this is one of the most beloved recipes in the book because it's familiar, it's comforting, and the mushrooms replace the meat. It's very good. I had the Game Changer chili. You saw that in the video. These muffins, I believe, did they arrive yet? I think this is what's being served tonight. I don't want to speak out in case they didn't show up, but these have no sugar and no oil. I've made them with date cream, so that's how I sweeten. There's no oils in my recipes in my book, but these are really a hit. If you want something for sure, a take-two grab food that everyone will love, these are it. And of course, you know, the corn with the Fruit Loops and the chocolate cherry muffins. Oh, mandarin chocolate ice cream. Hey, I went to Banan, the ice cream truck. You know, I got to tell, who told me about the Lorraine? I tell you, I went to all the places she told me about. First day, I thought, you know, I had been traveling. I told you I got up at 2:30 in the morning, and I just couldn't stand it. I dropped off my bags and I drove down to Diamond Head and I kind of walked around inside and I'm looking for the truck, and there it was. She said it's down there across the street. So I took some pictures of that and put them up on social media too. But I make, you've probably made that banana ice cream. Have you done that? You put it in the food processor, and I make that all the time. But I figured out how to make a mandarin chocolate one, which is like one of my favorite flavors of ice cream from when I was a kid. You just have chocolate and you put orange extract in it with the bananas. It's spectacular. And then I figured out how to freeze it so you can scoop it. So that's in there. So basically eat more whole plant foods and less of everything else. So how about, would this be a good time? You want to hear my song?
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of silly. I actually put it together for the, Michigan brought me in for the Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group. Have you heard about this with Dr. Joel Kahn? In Detroit area, I went and spoke with the Wayne State medical students, if you can believe it. The third-year students are getting an influx thanks to Dr. Kahn's influence on plant-based nutrition. So, okay, let's see. You're going to recognize the tune, and then I'm hoping you're going to sing it with me after. Over here, over there, send the word everywhere, that the plants are coming, our Tom's yumming everywhere. Pick a pear, grab a chair, dig right into your chin if you care. Over, plants taking over, and we won't turn back till plants take over everywhere. Hey!
Mahalo to all of you for coming. Have a safe return home tonight. Good night, everyone.
This program is brought to you by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii,